Hello, everyone, and welcome to How to Earn More Money with International Tax. My name is Katrina Haynes. I'm excited to be with you this evening. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off until it's time for Q&A just because it kills my bandwidth. So, thank you again for being with me today and this evening, morning, depending on where you're coming from. And I'm super excited to have this conversation with you guys. So, let me know if you can hear me. You should be able to. Yes, yes, yes. All right. I don't want to waste anybody's time. So let's just get right to it. All right. So we are talking today about how to earn more money with international tax. So this is a topic that I'm super passionate about and something I want to make sure that I share with you because it's something that is really close to my heart. So I really just my goal for the session today is to just talk to you guys about what I do and what I've been doing and just provide you with a little bit more information on what international tax looks like from a consultant's perspective so that you have an idea of what is available. And then we'll get into some opportunities and an offer to help at the end. So let's get right into it. Like I said, before we get started, my name is Katrina Haynes. I'm a CPA with over 25 years of experience, and I specialize exclusively in U.S. expatriate and foreign national taxation. So that's individual income taxes for US taxpayers that are either living and working outside of the United States or foreign nationals inside of the United States. So non-citizens of the United States that are living and working in the United States. So for those of you that are not aware, US citizens living and working outside of the United States are subject to tax on their worldwide income, even if they have not lived or worked in the United States during the year, even if their income is from sources outside of the United States. So they have to report and disclose their income and potentially pay tax on their worldwide income as long as they maintain their citizenship. For green card holders, taxpayers that are legally allowed to be in the United States, they are subject to tax indefinitely for green card holders. They're subject to tax just like US citizens on their worldwide income, even if they've been living and working outside of the United States. For green card holders specifically, there's a little wrinkle that states that if your green card expires for immigration purposes or there's an actual date on your green card, if that green card expires or you lose it or it becomes invalid by operational law, green card holders have to be in the United States for certain periods of time to keep their green card active. If something happens and that green card is no longer valid for travel, it still remains valid for US income tax purposes. And I have had to work with way too many families of deceased taxpayers that were unaware of that. And then they had issues after the taxpayer passed away trying to release their assets from the United States. So you have to surrender your US green card to a US consular officer, and it has to be accepted for you to be able to um, terminate that requirement to report, disclose, pay tax on your worldwide income, report any foreign bank account information. So I have worked for many of the global firms, including Arthur Anderson, EY, Deloitte. I worked for Grant Thornton. I ran a global mobility and domestic relocation program for Roche Diagnostics, and I worked for the Coca-Cola Company, which I refer to as the best non-alcoholic beverage. Well, they're semi-alcoholic now. At the time when I was working there, they were the best non-alcoholic beverage company in the world. And I guess to increase market share, they expanded a little bit into some alcoholic beverages. So I'll say the best semi non-alcoholic beverage company in the world. I was their global mobility tax manager, and I was responsible for, as we were moving people around the world to continue operations, making sure that we were legally compliant in both the US and whatever country combinations we had. That was very similar to what I did externally for the global accounting firms. So I would work on different clients and I would help to make sure that each individual taxpayer was in compliance with their US filing obligations and also that the company that sent them on the assignment or themselves if they were overseas by themselves that they were also legally in compliance based on what the obligations were in their country combinations. But I always say my best and my most important job is as mother to these three little ladies that are on the screen. So, in addition to my work with the global firms and my experience working in and outside of corporations, I've also, since I started my own business, which I started in 2015, Haynes Global Tax Experts, formerly Haynes and Associates. One of the things that I noticed coming out of the global firms is the limited availability of expat tax knowledge once you leave the walls of the global firms. And so I actually started, and most of you probably that well, it just depends, with CPA Academy, working with Scott Zara and his team, his amazing team at CPA Academy, and just reaching out to them. This was in 2015, 2016, and asking them if they had any desire to add some international tax components to their platform. And we've been working together since, well, goodness gracious, almost 10 years now. And I've also worked with other organizations like the NATP, the NAEA, World Trade Center Academy of Atlanta, WeVolve, which is an organization run by international athletes, a lot of mostly US basketball players that are playing overseas. They don't get the same type of robust packages that that domestic uh, taxpayers in the NBA or the WNBA get. Power to Fly, Penn State, Global Financial Planning Institution, etc., Democrats Abroad, and so on and so forth. Just reaching out and talking not only to tax professionals, but also to the expats themselves to keep them aware of their requirements. Because a lot of people think that once they leave the United States, they no longer have a US filing requirement, and the US is one of only 3 countries that I'm aware of that has citizenship-based taxation. So even if you're living outside of the United States, as I mentioned on the previous slide, you still have to file. I think the only other 2 countries that have that requirement are Russia and Mexico. So just getting the word out to US people that have moved on their own, they didn't come with some sort of corporate program behind them, that they still have filing requirements, and allowing them to come into compliance before the IRS is looking for them. So, what we're going to talk about today is a few things. Why is there a need for international tax? Is there room for you? I'm going to talk about how we can help, and then I have a special offer. And then at the end, we're going to do some Q&A. So, if you came with questions about your own international tax scenario or one of your clients, then just go ahead and get ready by dropping them into the question section, and we'll just go ahead and answer questions until all the questions are answered. But I want to just get through the content that I have here, starting with why is there a need for international tax? Now, like I said, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I'll say within the last probably 5 years, I've seen more people moving outside of the United States and obtaining dual citizenship than I've ever seen in my entire career. And a lot of it has to do, some of it has to do with the political environment, but a lot of it has to do with the internet and social media. Just because the world is getting smaller and smaller with our ability to touch people overseas, there's more of an awareness of what's going on outside of, let's say if you're a US citizen, what's going out awareness of what's going on outside of the United States, and more of a healthy curiosity about other countries and other cultures, other living opportunities with the cost of everything going through the roof. If you can go and live in a country like Costa Rica or Panama, and on your retirement, and live very, very well with very little money, then that is becoming more and more appealing. So what we're starting to see is more than corporate expats moving overseas, but a lot of individuals are working overseas. Plus, we've got about 333 million companies that are operating global operations, which means they're moving people from place to place pretty much consistently. And about 44% of employees are working remotely from abroad. This is a 2023 number. The numbers for 2024 haven't come out yet, but nearly half of US expats have moved because of their careers. And there's, because of, I believe, the pandemic and the technology that we have, which allows people to work abroad remotely or anywhere, it's just become a lot easier for taxpayers to move around and have that kind of experience. And so, what we want as tax professionals is to make sure that they're not moving overseas and creating an additional tax burden that they're not aware of. And then something happens, they try to come back to the United States, or unfortunately, they pass away and they find out that they haven't been in compliance. So, the estimate is that about 5.1 million US taxpayers are living overseas. That's from American citizens abroad. The IRS says it's close to 9 million. Now, the IRS is basing that on the number of taxpayers, this is US taxpayers, that are filing tax returns with foreign addresses. So my book of business is completely expat based. I will say 50% of my clients use a foreign address, the other 50% use a US address, whether it's a virtual mailbox, whether it's some with someone's family or friends, or they maintained a house in the United States. So to me, that number is severely understated. If there's so between American citizens abroad and the IRS, we've got about a $5 million taxpayer swing. I would say it's probably another 5 to 10 that are actually living overseas. And of that number, only 2,390 have given up their citizenship. That's in a year. So we will like there's just way more people out here than we could ever provide work for. And one of the things that I want to mention is someone who came from the global firms, and I still have a lot of connections within the global firms. A lot of what I hear from individual tax practitioners, well, that's work for the global firms to do. And there's a yes and a no to that. So the yes is what global firms are looking for is ways go- to charge really large fees. And the only way you can do that is with a lot of consulting services, which, are tax services don't necessarily lend themselves to consulting. There is consulting within the tax piece of it, but a regular, I'm going to put that in air quotes, expat tax return, you're not going to be able to upcharge a whole lot for it. The price is the price is the price. This is what it is. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room in there. That's at the corporate level. A lot of times when we were doing RFPs to get expat programs, then we have to set the tax return preparation price lower because what we also want is payroll consulting and policy consulting and all those other things that we're going to be able to bill at hourly rate. That's for the corporate returns. When you have someone who's going, meaning a corporate sponsored assignment, when you have someone who is moving overseas as a sole proprietor, as a self-employed person that does not have the backing of a global organization, it is going to be extremely hard for them to get into a global firm for two reasons. One, it's cost prohibitive. My very first client that actually left when I left the global firms, she was paying, this is someone who had a regular, I'm going to put regular in air quotes, regular job. She was on a W-2. She was living outside of the United States and she had a foreign bank account. That was it. There wasn't a whole lot of I mean, that in and of itself is complex, but from an expat tax perspective, there she didn't have PFIX, she didn't have foreign trust, she didn't have a lot of treaty positions, she didn't have things like that. The firm I was at was charging her $10,000 a year, and this is someone who was making a little over $100,000 a year at the time, $10,000 a year. So it's cost prohibitive for someone, and I did her return for 5 years at that firm. She paid them $50,000 for me to do her return. And then as soon as I left, she left with me and said, "Can you please do my return? I can't keep paying these people $10,000 a year to do my return." She didn't care if I had a business. I didn't at the time, but I told her I would keep preparing her return. And she became my first client, which started my own solo entrepreneurship journey. But this woman, again, she was paying 10% of her income to get reliable tax return preparation services. Okay. Then on top of that, the other part of it is the independence issue. So whenever you're working at a global firm, you have to be independent of all of their audit clients. So I've had, and I still have these relationships where people will say, "Hey, we just picked up XYZ as an audit client. We had been doing their CEOs or their CFOs tax return, their expat tax return. We can't do it anymore. Can you do it?" So if you are, Jane Smith coming in off the street and you've got a lot of stock or you've got any kind of withholdings that can cause a client conflict with one of their audit clients, they're not going to help you. It doesn't matter how much money we're paying you. You're not paying us more than that audit client is paying us. And we don't want to keep track of how much your personal movements are to maintain compliance. So we're just going to say no, right? I have a lot of people who come to me from the global firms and say, "Well, you charge more than the global firms." I do charge more than the global firms because they're charging the returns at a discount because of the consulting. I'm charging to cover my overhead, which is going to be a little bit higher. Um, and they're not going to do the return anyway because yeah, my price is more than theirs, but they sent you to me because they would not do the return. So what are we even talking about? Okay, so that's just for the U.S. outbound. That's one small piece of what we're even talking about. That's just the U.S. outbound. Then we've got green card holders. So these are people that have come into the United States and that have applied to be legal permanent residents or green card holders, right? And again, they're treated just like US citizens for tax purposes. So these are the most updated numbers I could find. In 2022, the USCIS accepted 1.02 million green card applications. That's the number of applications that they accepted. Okay. There are so many people in that queue. Okay. So let's say they process about a million a year. There's 12.7 million green card holders in the United States. A lot of these people are foreign nationals. They came into the United States to work, they came into the United States to live, and now they they are living here in the US as residents, but they also continue to have ties outside of the United States. They have foreign bank accounts, some of them have foreign pensions, some of them have foreign real estate, and they need all of this information to continue to stay in compliance. I've had clients who thought that they only had to report the income they earned in the US on their US return and the income they earned overseas on the foreign return. That is not true. Once you're a resident of the US, you report worldwide income. If you're a tax resident of that other country, you report worldwide income. And you have to use things like the foreign tax credit, foreign earned income exclusion, treaty positions, and things like that to minimize some of that double taxation that is going to occur. So green cards, again, I said this before, but I'm going to say it again. They remain valid for tax purposes, even if they are no longer valid for immigration purposes. So we've got a sample on the slide that has an expiration date. So let's say this particular taxpayer, let's say their card expired August 21st, 2007. That means they can't use it to travel. That does not mean they are no longer a legal permanent resident of the United States. I had a colleague say this, and I was like, this is the perfect example. If your passport expires, you are still a citizen. You just cannot use it to travel. It's the same thing with a legal permanent resident card. You cannot abandon it unless you surrender it to a US consular officer or it's revoked. The only time you see someone getting their green card revoked typically has to do with if they've done something really, really bad, or if a naturalized citizen gets their citizenship revoked. Typically, that has to do, they did something, they committed some sort of crime or some sort of act against the United States. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. You can't say, oh, it was abandoned. It wasn't abandoned. You lost it or it expired, but that doesn't change your status as a legal permanent resident, just like it wouldn't change your citizenship status. The number of taxpayers that expatriate, meaning give up their citizenship, give up their permanent residency, they have their names posted in a quarterly federal tax registry, which is how we know the number. That's at 23,900. That includes citizens and green card holders from the prior year. So that's US citizens, that's green card holders living in the United States. We also have foreign nationals coming into the United States that aren't on green cards, but that do have the right to work in the United States, such as taxpayers on immigrant visas, non immigrant visas, B1, B2 visas, and border crossing cards. Those are typically short term, 3 months or so. International students are over a million or so. So that's still another 10, 12, almost 13, 14 million taxpayers that need support from foreign national foreign because of their international tax issues. So these, I mean, I cannot say this enough. There's way, way, way more work than there is people to do the work. And then, on top of all of that, we've got accidental Americans. These are taxpayers that are US citizens by birth. Some of them have never lived or worked in the United States. Some of them have never been to the United States. Some of them don't speak the language. But guess what? Because their mom or dad or both are citizens, or they were, some of them were born in the United States. There was this one this one situation where someone I think was flying from Mexico to Canada. They had a layover in the US. The mom had the baby's a citizen, and they went on about their way. That baby has a filing requirement to report their US income, their worldwide income, report their foreign bank account information, even if they didn't even know that that was a requirement. Okay. And since the US has a cost to renounce their citizenship, which is $2,350, a lot of them can't afford to do that. So let's say you have US parents and you live and work in a small village in the outskirts of, I'll just say, in Italy. You may not speak the language. It's hard enough for US citizens that are living in the United States to understand the Internal Revenue Code. Imagine if you don't know anything about the United States, you don't even have a frame of reference as of when you need to file, you don't understand the language, you don't understand the code, and you can't give up your citizenship unless you pay them $2,350. And in order to do that, you have to be in compliance for at least the last 5 years to do that. So a lot of the accidental Americans have revolted, for lack of a better term, against the US government. They said they're not going to file, they're not going to come into compliance, but the law is still the law, is still the law. And if the IRS, the US Department of Treasury decide to become super duper diligent, they can go after all of those taxpayers. And a lot of that information, because of the FATCA regulations and the financial crimes enforcement networks and the things that they are, the policies they're putting in place, it's making it a lot easier for the IRS and the Department of Treasury to track down these taxpayers. The estimated number of accidental Americans is completely unknown. It's just, it's, we have no idea. Okay. So this should be pretty pretty straightforward. But the question then, is there room for you? So the number of U.S. accountants in the number of accountants in the U.S. is about 1.4 million. Active CPAs is a little over 680,000. Enrolled agents is 60,000. Tax return preparers is 750,000. I have given you probably about 30 million people that need support. We've got 750,000. If each of us do 1,000 returns, then that's still way more people than we could ever serve. So I have been making a living taking care of my three little girls for the last, however, the oldest is 14. So 14, 15 years just doing this kind of work, not any other type of expat tax work. It is extremely, extremely needed, and it is very lucrative because it is highly specialized. Someone asked a question already, and they said, "How many people do you think operate in this space outside of the firms?" Not many. I That's not a great answer. I'll say that I have an international tax group that I'm a member of that's based out of Texas, and there might be 50 of us, maybe. I have other colleagues that focus just on international corporate tax work, so 5471s, PFIX foreign trust. I have some colleagues that work just on international estate tax planning, so they do foreign trust and U.S. trust and things like that. But as far as just all I do 100% besides the education piece is, as far as from a tax compliance perspective, is US expats and foreign nationals in the United States. That's it. And I am consistently turning down work just because I have a limited capacity because of the education component. And I mean, people are coming to me nonstop. So my personal my personal agenda is to bring as many other tax preparers into the space as possible, because we have way more people to serve than we could ever possibly serve. And the US, outside of just the tax return preparers, we're short, according to Fortune, about 340,000 accountants. So to catch up, then we would need to have about 126,000 openings for accountants and auditors to be average for the next 10 years. And that's not tax, that's accountants period. So that's accountants and auditors, that's people doing financial statement reviews and audit reports and so on and so forth. If we're that short, then expat tax is a subset of tax. It's a subset of a subset of a subset. So we've got accounting, we've got tax, then we've got individual tax, and we've got expat individual taxation. If we are short 340,000 accountants today, and we expat tax is a subset of a subset of a subset of those number of people that are in the accounting department or the accounting profession, we we really need help. We just really need help, and these taxpayers need help, because the saddest part, and this is something that I try to impress upon individual taxpayers when I'm speaking to them, is while the IRS is slow, they are becoming more and more diligent with finding US taxpayers that are living outside of the United States, specifically because of the FATCA regulations. And just kind of high level, the FATCA regulations are withholding and remittance compliance rules for taxpayers that have US citizens, green card holders, anyone with a US Social Security number that are either doing business with a foreign financial institution, so that could be a bank or a brokerage firm, or a non-foreign financial entity. Because of these regulations, foreign banks and financial institutions are required to report back directly to the Internal Revenue Service all of your financial transactions. So when you are a US person and you're banking with a US bank, you're going to get a US Form 1099 INT for interest, a 1099 DIV for dividends, and so on and so forth. 3 copies of those forms are issued. One is from the person who issues the statement. One goes to the taxpayer who received the funds, and then one goes to the Internal Revenue Service. So the Internal Revenue Service, when you're filing your return, they already know some of the stuff that they expect to see on your return, which is how they know if there's a mismatch. With the FATCA regulations, what they're doing is the exact same type of the visibility, I'll say, for your foreign transactions. So the IRS has visibility to US people. Let's say you're depositing $5,000 or the equivalent of $5,000 every 2 weeks into your German bank account, but then you file a tax return and all you're reporting is the interest that comes through your 1099. You're walking yourself into an audit, not alone a foreign bank account violation, which can be up to 50% of the account balance and anywhere from 3 to 5 years in federal prison if it's a willful violation. If it's a non-willful violation, meaning they think it's an accident, it's a $10,000 penalty per delinquent year, no statute of limitations. That 10,000 adjusted for inflation is about 26,000 per year, and then a year and a day in federal prison. That's for a non-willful violation. If they think it's an accident, you can still do a year and a day. And they are taking regular people off of the street that have accidentally failed to file their FBARs, and they are putting them in federal prison for a year and a day and charging them $25,000 per omitted foreign bank account disclosure. So that in and of itself is, I mean, we are out here saving lives. So how can we help you? Because I have said to the people that are in my community, I have let them know that this is my last year taking on new clients. It's just way more than I can handle. So what I've started doing is working with my community on the last bullet, the people that are in my VIP calls. And every time I get a new client, I tell them what my pricing is, and then I pass them along to someone within my VIP community so that the person can get a qualified tax return preparer, a certified global tax expert. But also, I just do not, I no longer have the capacity to take on more work. So, like I said, my mission in life now is to get as many people into this particular business model as I possibly can so that they can serve as many people as they possibly can. And we don't have to see a whole bunch of regular people going to federal prison for failing to disclose something on a tax return. To me, it's just absolutely ridiculous that that even happens. But you don't know what you don't know. So we provide live and on-demand webinars. So we have different topics that you can either take live and get CPE or CE credit. The on-demand webinars don't qualify for credit just yet, but we talk about foreign earned income exclusion and how to calculate that. We talk about the foreign tax credit, foreign pensions, specific topics like international students. We talk about how to go through tax treaties, foreign estates, trusts, and things like that. We have high-level classes on controlled foreign corporations, PFICs, foreign partnerships. We talk about the FBAR and FATCA regulations, dual status tax returns, Social Security for expats, tax equalizations, and things like that. We also provide certifying acceptance agent services for ITIN applications. So if you have a taxpayer who is a foreign national and they do not qualify for a U.S. Social Security number, they can still be included on the tax return. They just have to get an ITIN, an individual taxpayer identification number, which is a 9-digit number that starts with the number 9. These numbers, you have to either apply directly at an IRS office or you can go through a certifying acceptance agent because your original documents, whether they be your passport, birth certificate, have to be certified before you can send the application on for processing. So we provide those services as well. We also provide general peer support. So we provide tax return reviews. If you're really stuck on an area and you need help with the tax return, we can jump on a call. We can operate through a portal where you can upload the returns and we can talk through them over Zoom, or we can Zoom or do a screen share, and then just general consultations where we can talk through however many clients you want over two 30-minute calls, which for the consultation fee. And then I've got the monthly VIP calls, which is it. This is something that was rolled out over the summer for people who've been in my community for a while and still needed some follow-up support. We created a system of monthly calls where the taxpayers, the tax preparers, we get on a call once a month, and then everybody goes through all of the questions that we have in a group format, so everyone's getting the same information. The calls are recorded and uploaded to a portal, so if you miss the call, then you can always refer later. The VIP calls also come with 3 one-on-one calls every single month. So that's an opportunity as well. So if you're like, I want to do this, but I don't feel like I have the support, the VIP calls is a really good way to go because we're going to be able to walk through all of your specific issues and do tax return reviews in the confine. So We also have a 3-day intensive if you want to dive right in. It's a 3-day course where we talk about all things U.S. expat and foreign national taxation. It is an intensive. It is it is a robust course. I put together everything in here that I thought you would need to be able to leave and continue and to basically start your business. So the first day we talk about expat specific stuff, so U.S. taxpayers living and working overseas. The second day we talk about foreign nationals, so non-citizens of the United States that are living in the United States. We talk about topics that relate to them. And then the third day, we kind of do things that relate to both or things that kind of just kind of miscellaneous stuff. So that's when we start talking about foreign entities, gift and estate tax issues, hypothetical tax equalizations, and things like that. And then there's a case study on day 1 and 2. There's a single case study day 1 and 2. Day 3, there's 3 comprehensive case studies that cover everything that we've covered over the last 3 days. So let's go ahead and watch a quick video about, you're not going to be able to hear this, so I'm going to go ahead and pause it. And I will go ahead and let you watch a short video that talks about what the intensive looks like. Okay, so that's just kind of quickly about the intensive. So it's funny because the first person on here is Laurel, and she was talking about she came in January, and afterwards she was able to provide support with her German U.S. clients. She was living in Germany at the time when she came. She has since relocated back to the United States, and she said she didn't know how to handle any of the cases, but she's grateful for the specialized training. It's so I actually literally talked to her before this call, and she said, she said, Katrina, I gotta be honest. When you were talking about in the intensive all the work that was out there, she said I didn't really believe you because she felt because I had, a lot of connections that it was just gonna be easier for her. But she said, taking some of the advice that I gave her during the intensive, because that's another thing we talk about that's not on the slide. On day 3, we talk about marketing. We talk specifically about how you can go to market in your area to get these kinds of clients in, especially to start the flow. Because once you start the flow and you get out there, then you don't have to do anything else. There's not a whole lot of um, advertising that is required from a tax return compliance perspective, because once you get plugged in somewhere, then they're going to feed you. They're going to feed you all you need, depending on how much work you actually want to do. And then Jason said he gained a wealth of valuable insights. The guidance has been immensely helpful. And then a couple other people. So Constance, she's a Dutch national. I actually met her because she did a consultation with me for her own personal stuff. And then we started talking about her being a tax return preparer. So she really had, she enjoyed herself, and she said she got some valuable life lessons even at 71 years old. And then Jorge and Victoria are living in Florida. It was so funny to me because the entire time, this is a father and daughter, it's a family business based in South Florida. And the entire time they kept looking at each other like, we're going to need to hire more people. We're going to need to hire more people. They thought that they were struggling for business. And when they left, realizing all the pieces that they could handle within their business that they already had. They were like, we're going to need more people to be able to handle all of this work. So it's definitely worth it. So I'm going to give you guys an offer, and then we're going to go into Q&A. So like I said, January 1st, 2025, I'm only taking on, I'll do delinquent filers and super, super complicated issues, but I'm trying to wean myself off of tax return preparation just because education is really where I think the greater need is. There's no way I would ever be able to or have the desire to serve the 35 million or so people that are out there. But if I can get as many tax return preparers into a space where they feel comfortable doing this work, then we can, as a collective, go out and serve as many people as we want to. So I am offering my intensive course, which is 24 hours of CPE or CE credits. We've got the case studies, we've got real-time Q&A. You get copies of all the handouts and slides. So based on that, it's about a $9,600 value, but the price of the intensive is $3,500. If you add the VIP package, it's $500. What the VIP package comes with is recordings of all of the sessions, so that you can play everything back and go over it at your own pace, because it is a lot of information. These are three 8 to 9 hour days, and it is a lot of information. So the VIP package comes with the recordings of all the sessions, and a VIP box, which is fun. So if you sign up as a result of attending this webinar, then we are offering $1,000 off. So you would, instead of the in-person price is 2,500, the virtual price is slightly less. And then you would get the VIP package on top of that. So if that's something you're interested in, you can either go to our website or click the QR code. The coupon code is DEAL. Our website is hayneshelp.com, HAYNESHELP.com. And if you look for the intensive, there's a link to it you'll see the video that I just played. And you can go in there and put the coupon code DEAL in. It'll be good for the next 4 days. Yeah, it'll be good for the next 4 days. So you can go in and get your. You can see the dates where there's virtual sessions and there are live sessions. The live sessions are hosted in Atlanta, Georgia. The live sessions are substantially more limited. They're limited to 30 people at a maximum. I try to keep them small because I want everyone to feel comfortable asking their questions. So typically it's anywhere from 10, 30 people is on the high side. So the live sessions are limited. You'll see the dates for the sessions. They're located in Atlanta, Georgia. We have a hotel. It's at my office, which, if you know much about Atlanta, it's at the perimeter area. There's a hotel that's literally walking distance. We share the same parking lot as an AC Marriott, so that is where we get our rooms. We have a room block that we get, and then the virtual sessions, the dates are there as well. So you might say, that sounds great, Katrina, but I can't pay in full today. Inflation is inflating. That's fine. Send me an email. We do payment plans. So the payment plans are set based on which session you would like to attend, whether you want VIP or not, and you pay a fixed amount per month. Once you make the first payment, you can sign up for the intensive. So depending on how far out you want most of them are $500 a month. So if you would make a $500 payment before we get to Tuesday, then you can sign up for the intensive in November and then just keep making payments after the fact. So just send me an email, info@hayneshelp.com, and we can go ahead and get that going. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to do our Q&A now. And then I'm going to put the coupon code back up so that if anybody wants to go ahead and take advantage of that. We got a lot of really good questions in here. So let's see what we've got so far. Some people have sent some questions in that I've responded to. Someone says, will you provide the slides? You'll get a copy of this recording and the slides tomorrow. So yes, you can have the slides and the recording tomorrow. Someone says, if a green card holder is a dependent and has no income in the United States, do they still need to file a return? The answer to that is going to be yes. If they are above the filing threshold for a dependent, then they would still have a filing requirement. Okay. So the thing about it is, when you're a US person, whether you're a citizen or a legal permanent resident, then you are still subject to the laws as if you were in the United States. So if the dependent would have had a filing requirement in the United States, then they're going to have a filing requirement if they're outside of the United States. So the same rules are going to apply. Another question, how long is it going to take you to get trained? The training is 3 days and it covers expats, foreign nationals, and then other miscellaneous. It comes with, if you're doing virtual, you're going to get a copy of the slides. You'll get them handouts and slides electronically. If you're in person, you get a bound copy of the slides. It's like it looks like a it looks like a phone book. It actually is the size of a phone book. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera back on. So you'll get a bound copy of the slides if you're in person. I don't know what happened to mine. I guess you guys can see me. But you'll get a bound copy of the slides if you're in person. And if not, you'll still get copies of the handouts and slides. Once you finish, then you will be a certified global tax expert, and you can go ahead and let people know that you've been through this training, and and that you are certified. Another question, will I provide clients to start? So I'll say kind of. What I'm When I receive client requests, I go to my intensive attendees first. So I reach out to them. I actually have them complete a survey that asks them what kind of clients do you want. So I have some clients that are, I have one former intensive graduate who she's a Romanian national. So anyone in Europe she would like to handle. I've got some clients that prefer South American countries or things like that. Some people only like US expats, some people only like foreign nationals. So I try to collate all of that information, and then as people come in, I provide clients. Um, I also will work with some people if they need a little bit more support. Like I said, and we also talk about how to go to market. How do we get your clients in the door in the first place? Because I don't want you to leave here and then say, "Wait, that's great knowledge, but how do I apply it?" Because I don't have any clients to work on. Here's another question. If a taxpayer moved out of the US and lost their residency due to not having legal residency or citizenship and maintained rental properties but never filed an election to claim deductions, what options could they have 10 years once they've left the United States? So if they're not residents of the United States, I'm not sure how they lost their residency, but um, if they had rental properties in the United States, so it sounds like they're not citizens, they're not residents, they would be filing 1040 NRs. They could still, oh gosh, this is going to be hard. So typically what would happen is you would do a streamlined filing for foreign or streamlined filing for domestic, but because they're not US persons, then it might be hard to make the election to treat the business as a qualifying business unit. But send me an email separately. I'd like to get more information. I might be able to help you through that. That might be something that's going to require some research just because they're a non-resident alien taxpayer. Okay, somebody said they're unable to see the entire QR code. I think they're on their phone. Can you go to the website and register there with the code DEAL? Yes, you can. So if you go in there, go into my website at hayneshelp.com, you can you can just go straight to the page for the intensive and use the code DEAL and it will work. Make sure you're doing don't do the 2.0 class. That's the class after this class because it's not going to work for that one. But for the original intensive, it will work. All right, I'm a new enrolled agent and just about to start tax preparation. My goal is to focus on expat international taxes because I also filter demographic. Question is, can the course prep me to start focusing on this niche and what are the average price? Two questions. So will this course help me to focus? Absolutely, absolutely. That's all we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about individual expat, individual foreign national taxes. Um, that is the whole point of this course and putting this together. The second question: what is the average price for student returns? So people that have been through my course know that I am very consistent with with my fee preparation. It is not a surprise that the tax return, the course is $3,500 because that is my base price for tax return preparation. Um, you are not charging for the fact that you can put numbers on a return. You're charging for the fact that you have invested in the ability to get the knowledge to do the return. So for me, if you leave here and you get one $3,500 client, then you've made your money back and it's worth it. And if I have to send you that $3,500 client, because all of the clients I send, I'm quoting them that price. So a lot of times when I'm passing work off, I'll say, hey, this person I gave them 3,500. They buckled a little bit. So why don't you offer to do it for 2,500 or 3,000? They'll probably take it. And now a lot of my clients coming into this, I mean, it saddens me that we are undervaluing the amount of work this actually takes and the specialized knowledge that we need to have to do this work. I mean, some of them are doing returns for as low as $500, $750. And I've been guilty. When I first went full time, I was in a vacuum cleaner mode and I was just picking up returns and I was like, oh, 100, 300, whatever. And I'm going to tell you, those 100 and $300 clients gave me more trouble than my 1,000, $1,500 clients, which that was the high end at the time. Those 1,000 and $1,500 were so gracious and so kind and so patient, and those 100 and $300 clients gave me hell. Now, back to the question, what is the average price for a student return? That's going to depend because students are different. Students do not have as much money. Now, not all students. If you're dealing with like a J1 visa student or a graduate student or somebody who's coming to the US in some sort of advanced fellowship or something like that, they're going to have a little bit more money to spend. And we're not trying to fleece people, but we do want to charge for our value, right? So, the thing about it too, though, is if you're working specifically with foreign national students, you could be creating a long-term relationship. So they may be a student for 3 or 4 years, but then they get a job and now they're going to need tax return preparation assistance going forward. So I would say that for students, that is the only place where I would be comfortable cutting a bit of a discount. So you might do the return for $500. But if I'm going to do something like that or anything lower than that, then I'm working directly with the school and I'm saying, hey, let me come in, let me talk to your students, explain what the price is. I'll do their returns for $100 or so, but I need access to all your students. So, I mean, if you're doing something like that, then yeah, you can cut a little bit of a deal. But know that if you start at $100, it's going to be hard to get to $3,500. You might get to 1,000, but it's going to be really, really hard to get them to $3,500. Someone says if I can't make the virtual or the live webinar, but I'm upgrading to VIP, can have access after the fact? The answer to that is yes. So you'll have access to a recording. It's a private part of my YouTube page. So you'll get a link to YouTube that has a private link that you can only access if you have the link, and you can watch the courses again at your leisure. Do you think there are international tax opportunities for a U.S. enrolled agent living overseas? Absolutely. I know several. I have several that have been through my course that are enrolled agents living overseas, and they are making a lot of money and helping a lot of people. Um, is there a certification? Yes. Afterwards, you will get a certificate stating that you are a certified global tax expert. You don't have to at this time continue to take courses to keep yourself up, but I am doing a 2.0 course. It's not as frequently. It's once a time. It's once in the summer. I'm working with NASBA to be able to upload all of the courses virtually so that you can take them on demand. But me and NASBA, we have a love relationship, and it's just taking some time. So for now, there still will be, even once I get all of the sessions available for on demand CPE or NCE, then there will still be one live session. The live sessions will just be less frequent. Someone says, I have two questions. What's the best way to market international tax services and where? And what is the best way to practice doing international returns? So for me, the easiest, fastest way is international students to get people in the door and to get access for two reasons. One, you have access to volume. A lot of times there is an international like student manager or student coordinator. You talk to that person, they probably have a million things. They're dealing with visa issues. People have tax questions. The last thing they want to do is deal with their tax questions. Like I said, that's how I ended up working with Penn State. I think they posted something on their website about tax return prep information, and I read it and was like, that's not 100%. So I reached out to the person who wrote the article and said, hey, do you mind if I, talk to your students? And they said, absolutely, please. So we set up a couple of, it wasn't Zoom at the time, but we set up a couple of calls where they were able to ask their questions, get their questions answered, and then that kind of segued into the tax return preparation. And then the best way to practice doing international tax returns is just volume. You're going to need volume. You're going to have to get plugged in somewhere where they can feed you volume, even if you can't get the volume on your own, then I would say then the best way is to kind of connect with someone that can feed you, even if it's going somewhere and working for a short period of time to get to where you get comfortable. I would say depending on where you're located, a good place to start is international uh, organizations. So I'll say like if you are in the United States, one of my best friends is from the Bahamas, and so she's a member of the Bahamian American Society of Atlanta. Don't quote me if that's what it's not what it's called, but things like that. Go and reach out to them. Or international attorneys is another good one. Estate and financial planners is a good one. Just reach out to them and say, hey, is it okay if I get 5 or 10 minutes to talk about what I do? And a lot of times people are really, really receptive because especially in groups like that, they want to be able to be full service. So being able to provide their clients with that extra piece is really going to be valuable to them. How do you handle a client who is not a U.S. citizen or resident, but is a widow of a U.S. citizen with a U.S. pension income? That would be a non-resident alien, taxpayer filing a Form 1040-NR. You would be reporting the U.S. pension income, and then depending on if there's an income tax treaty, we might be able to get the income subject to a lower treaty rate. This is the kind of client that I would probably charge for a consultation first, and then see if we can work with the financial institution to withhold at the treaty rate so they don't have to file at all. I'm an enrolled agent. Do I need to be a CPA to help with the load of other firms? No, you do not. A lot of times, a lot of firms help, they require a designation, but it does not have to be a CPA specifically. You can be an enrolled agent and do this kind of work. Depending on what level you're going to be working with, if you're in entry level, they may not require a designation at all, but a designation is always going to be helpful. But the enrolled agent or the CPA, either one is going to be fine. Can a foreigner working in the US that meets the substantial presence test and must file as a resident file as married filing joint if the spouse has no income in the US and does not meet the substantial presence test? The answer to that is yes. So this is a foreign national coming into the United States. They meet the substantial presence test, meaning they're subject to tax on their worldwide income as if they were a citizen or a green card holder. They're married to a spouse that doesn't have any income, and she's not here. He or the spouse is not here. That would be, you would make an election under Internal Revenue Code Section 6013G to treat the spouse as a resident alien, and then that way the taxpayer could get access to married filing joint rates even though the spouse is not here. So 6013G would allow you to do that. Is there a software for preparing taxes that is most suitable for international tax? For example, Drake does not produce 1120F, but Lacert does. Any tips on this? So the the ones that I have used the most, either in firms or in my personal practice, are CCH Access and Go Systems. Pro Series also has a lot of international tax support, but my favorites are Go Systems and CCH Access. Go Systems is the one I use now. I've used CCH Access before. It's not as user friendly to me as Go Systems is. Go Systems is much more user friendly, but if you are doing tax equalization calculations, which typically you wouldn't do outside of a global program, CCH Access is better for that. But Go Systems does have TEQ capability. It's not as good as CCH Access, but Go Systems is hands down my favorite. It makes it a lot easier to do the returns and make changes if you need to. More questions. How much would you charge for a tax consultation? I would say no less. If it's for a 30-minute consultation, I would say no less than $100. I charge $300 for a consultation, but it's two 30-minute calls. So you get two 30-minute calls and they don't expire. So if you are a tax professional, what I tell people is if you have one issue you want to discuss, that's fine. If you've got 5 issues and you want to get them all out in one 30-minute call and then save the other 30-minute call for later, that's fine. Do you discuss foreign business entities and how to handle officers, things like officers and shareholders? We do discuss foreign entities on the last day. We talk about controlled foreign corporations. We talk about PFICs, passive foreign investment companies, foreign trusts, and foreign partnerships. And we talk about what the filing requirements are for officers and directors and shareholders. We don't get in as deep because the purpose of that particular session is to identify what other filings are required. When we get the 2.0 intensive is where we start talking about those courses more, just because there's so much going on in that 3-day course. to then talk about how to prepare CFCs and 8621s. It's too much for 3 days. But when we do the 2.0 course, which is a 1 day course, then we talk about 5471s, 8621s. We talk about we get more in depth there. Um, Asking another question about fees. We talked about fees already. Here's another question. Have you found that there is a need for estate or retirement tax planning as well in addition to tax preparation? There is. A lot of taxpayers that have cross-border issues need to understand how to handle those assets. One of the things we talk about on day 3 is gift and estate tax planning for international taxpayers. What happens when you inherit from a foreign national? What happens if you get a gift from a foreign national? The rules are not the same. When you're dealing with someone who's a non-resident alien and they give you a gift, U.S. gift taxation is on the giver. So if you have a non-citizen, non-resident of the United States, you can't tax the giver, so you have to tax the recipient. So the rules are different. We don't have inheritance taxation in the United States because we have a state tax law. If you're getting an estate from a foreign national, non-citizen, non-resident of the United States, those rules are different. So 100% there is a state and retirement tax planning required. Plus, I talk to a lot of my clients about what happens when you retire overseas. Do you have Social Security benefits that you're going to get? Do you have pension distributions that you're going to get? Are you a foreign national coming into the United States and you have a foreign pension? You have an Australian superannuation fund. How do you treat those different types of things? That's the kind of stuff that we need to help them address. I don't have the experience to deal with international tax. How can I persuade potential clients to handle their returns? So, this is a good question because a lot of times nobody is really aware of what, um, like, nobody's really aware of how much you know. You just have to know more than they know, one, and you have to know where to go to get the information. So, I started my career at Arthur Andersen. Arthur Andersen ended abruptly, and I thought I was going to retire there as a partner. That obviously did not happen for a lot of us. And so I went to teach income tax to adults. So that's kind of how I got into teaching, kind of the short version. And one of the things I used to tell them is all of your tests are open book, open note, and you can talk to your neighbor. The only person you can't talk to is me. You can work together because you don't need to have to know all the stuff off the top of your head. You just have to know how to go to get that information. And that's the whole point of the class is to give you the skills to get to the information. And then, you always have me on the back end. You don't have to persuade clients. We don't do that. We present our services and we let them choose because I'm gonna tell you, because some people balk at the fact that I charge 3,500 for a tax return. For every single time I have someone who says, wow, that's too high, I have 3 or 4 people that say, okay, well, that's fine. And all it takes is one. I mean, it's the same amount of effort for a $1,500 return as it is for well, not necessarily. It could be the same amount of effort. So why wouldn't I want to get paid for the value, all the years I've spent or all the time I've spent learning this information? It's just like if you go into a Maserati dealership, they're not gonna sell you on the Maserati. You're here, so either you want it or you don't. And if you don't, that's fine. Someone else is gonna buy it. We don't have to persuade clients. We just present them with the opportunity. We show them that we can provide them with the support, and that's just by talking them through their issues. And then that should be enough. And if it's not, it's going to be enough for somebody. Provide more information on the 2.0 5471 class. It's not just 5471s, it's on the website as well. So if you go to the hayneshelp.com and go into the web store, under the HGTE intensives, there's 2 courses. There's the course that we're talking about today, which is the intro, and then there's the 2.0 class. It's at the end of July. It's $1,000. The deal code does not work for that. So you would have to go in there and we're going to be talking about FERPTA. We're going to be talking about 5471s, 8621s, and things like that. So it's on the website, hayneshelp.com. Um, if you're interested in that. We got one more question before we're going to close. Do you cooperate with wealth consultants since pension 401k with foreign addresses is a big issue? Yes. I have a lot of, so one of the places that I teach is Global Financial Planning Institute, which is all financial planners that operate with international clients and international bases. And so I work with them to help their clients stay in compliance and be aware of the rules and requirements, especially if they're living outside of the United States. So I will say 100% yes. I work with them a lot. I help their clients. I send clients to them if I've got U.S. clients that are retiring or are interested in retiring overseas and they want to understand what their investment options are based on where they're going, then I've got a lot of really, really good people that I work with. And I'm always looking to work with more people in that space. So, with that, this has been a great time. We're right at the hour. My kids have to go to bed. I have to go to bed. So, thank you guys so much. You're going to get a copy of the handout or the slides. You're going to get a copy of the recording tomorrow because the recording has to cure, and then you'll get a copy of the recording as well. If you have any other questions, just reach out to me, info@hayneshelp.com. And if you want a payment plan, let me know that as well. If you're interested in the 2.0, all of that stuff is on the website. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you guys so much for attending. I really, really hope that you take advantage of this opportunity. Like I said, this is my personal mission is to get as many people out here. There's so much. There's first and foremost, it's a business, so there's definitely money to be made. But then there's also so many people that we can help, lives we can change. I get so discouraged whenever I see someone, grandmother or grandfather going to federal prison for a foreign bank account violation. And I see it. I have alerts on my Google. I see it probably once a month. And it's really unnecessary when there are people like us that are willing to help. So thank you once again. I appreciate your attention and your attendance, and I look forward to seeing you soon. You guys have a great evening and a great rest of the day.